In a future where emotional androids known as Giftias have a limited lifespan, Tsukasa Mizugaki begins his job at the terminal service and is partnered with a female Giftia named Ayla, who appears distant yet emotionally fragile. As time passes, their professional relationship gradually develops into a deep emotional bond, even though both of them are fully aware that Ayla's remaining time is running out. Living under the shadow of an inevitable goodbye, Tsukasa is forced to come to terms with the painful reality of love, loss, and what it truly means to cherish every single moment they have together. Tsukasa hurried into the elevator. He found himself wondering whether, if his life truly had a limit, he would be able to face it. Inside the elevator, he noticed a beautiful girl. She looked calm, yet tears were quietly falling from her eyes. Their eyes met by chance, and even though Tsukasa did not know her name yet, he began to develop feelings for her. Tsukasa's destination was the main office of PsyCorp. After getting properly dressed, he headed to the information desk to ask where the terminal service department was located. To his surprise, the room was behind the main building, which meant he had to step outside, walk around, and head to the back. When he arrived, Tsukasa was shocked to find that his workplace was much smaller than the main office. He quickly entered and introduced himself to everyone there. The atmosphere felt awkward as everyone looked at him with curiosity. Tsukasa was even more confused when he noticed that there were children working in the office. Not long after, the head of the terminal service department, Takao, introduced himself. He told Tsukasa that if he had any questions about the job, he should ask Kazuki, since she handled field operations. Kazuki questioned Takao, pointing out that there were supposed to be no new staff members that year. It turned out that Tsukasa had been recommended by Director Shinya. Kazuki did not actually mind having a new staff member, but she felt that Takao should have informed the team beforehand, especially since there was no partner assigned to Tsukasa. Tsukasa then asked what kind of work the terminal service department actually did. Apparently, Director Shinya had not explained anything about it to him. Kazuki asked whether Tsukasa knew about the androids developed by Psy. Tsukasa said he was aware of Giftia, androids with artificial souls created by the company, but admitted that he had never seen one before. Takao believed that Tsukasa had probably seen them out on the street without realizing it. There were also Giftia working in the office. Among them were Constance, Sari, and Zack. Suddenly, an employee named Ren startled Tsukasa and introduced himself as a regular human. Tsukasa realized that he could not tell the difference between Giftia and humans. Kazuki explained that a Giftia's lifespan was limited to 81,920 hours, which was about 9 years and 4 months. Once that time was up, their memories and personality would begin to break down. At that point, the terminal service team would visit the owner's home to retrieve the Giftia. The retrieval process was carried out by a team consisting of 1 human and 1 Giftia. Unfortunately, there was no Giftia assigned as Tsukasa's partner. Not long after, a girl named Ayla entered the room. She turned out to be the same girl Tsukasa had seen in the elevator. Takao suggested that Ayla become Tsukasa's partner, but Kazuki objected. Takao insisted that Ayla was highly experienced and the top retriever. Kazuki became upset, believing that sending Ayla into the field was not a good idea. Surprisingly, Ayla accepted the assignment, which left everyone else confused. Tsukasa could not understand why Kazuki was being so overprotective. After changing his clothes, he approached Ayla. They introduced themselves, and Tsukasa asked what she had been thinking about in the elevator earlier. Unfortunately, Ayla did not understand his question. Suddenly, Zack appeared and told Michiru that it looked like Tsukasa liked Ayla since he had been holding her hand the whole time. Michiru called Tsukasa inexperienced and warned Ayla to be more careful, as she believed Tsukasa might be misunderstanding the situation. Tsukasa denied it, but Michiru had already been assigned to train him. The 4 of them soon got into a car and headed to their destination. Along the way, Michiru asked Tsukasa about his age, and it turned out that he was 18 years old. Zack mentioned that Michiru was 17, which annoyed her. She quickly emphasized that even though Tsukasa was older, she was still his senior at work, so he needed to follow her instructions. Zack added that Michiru had only been working there for a year and even brought up how Kazuki had scolded her before. Hearing that, Michiru snapped at Zack. Tsukasa then asked Ayla why both Giftia and humans were required for the job. He learned that their roles were divided into marksman and spotter. The Giftia handled negotiations with the owners, while the human acted as the spotter, supervising their partner's actions. Tsukasa was surprised to realize that his role was mostly observational. Zack commented that Tsukasa had joined them without even understanding the job. Tsukasa then asked Ayla if there was any kind of manual, since he still did not understand the work at all. Ayla handed him a book and explained that the job did not really make someone feel accomplished because in the end, their task was to erase memories. Unexpectedly, the book Ayla gave him turned out to be her personal diary. Not long after that, they arrived at their destination. Their next retrieval target was named Edward. His owners were Hajime and Mari, and the deadline was set for 6 p.m. Tsukasa wondered whether Zack could handle it, but Michiru explained that every Giftia was equipped with strong negotiation skills. Zack rang the doorbell and greeted Hajime and Mari politely. He explained that he had come to retrieve Edward. Hajime and Mari welcomed him warmly and expressed their hope that Zack would take good care of Edward. Tsukasa found it surprising that someone as mischievous as Zack could act so kind and respectful toward others. Before leaving, Edward expressed his gratitude to Hajime and Mari for taking care of him. They would always consider him their son. The farewell was deeply emotional. Michiru then explained to Tsukasa that there were strict rules for retrieving a Giftia. First, the owner had to sign a consent form, and second, the owner had to be present during the retrieval. Zack proceeded to erase Edward's memories, and Hajime and Mari were heartbroken as they watched him leave. Tsukasa asked why the owner needed to be present during the retrieval. Michiru clarified that it was related to protecting privacy. A Giftia's memories contained a lot of personal information about the owner, which could potentially expose their private life. After that, Edward's body was handed over to the authorities. Tsukasa noted that there did not seem to be anything physically wrong with Edward, but Michiru explained that Edward's memories had already become unstable, and his personality would completely disappear within 12 hours. She made sure Tsukasa understood the responsibilities of the job, adding that he would be assigned 3 retrievals that week. Tsukasa thought the job sounded easy, but Michiru called him inexperienced and reminded him that not all owners were willing to sign the consent form. They then headed to the next house. As expected, the owner this time was cold and refused to sign the agreement. The Giftia they needed to retrieve was named Nina, and the owner was Chizu. The deadline was 5 days away. Michiru revealed that she had already visited the house 3 times, but Chizu still refused to sign. Tsukasa asked what would happen if the owner continued to refuse until the deadline. Michiru firmly stated that they would find a way to complete the retrieval no matter what. That day, Michiru decided to step back and assign the task to Tsukasa instead. He was surprised, but Michiru reassured him that Ayala was a veteran and would know how to handle the situation. At that moment, Ayala stood silently in front of the door, looking hesitant. Tsukasa even began to wonder whether she truly understood her job. Michiru believed that Ayala likely did understand her role, although she had never actually seen Ayala in action out in the field. Ayala then asked Tsukasa to ring the doorbell and call for the owner. There was no response, although faint footsteps could be heard inside. Suddenly, Ayala ran off after spotting their target fleeing together with the owner. She immediately moved to intercept them, jumping down from an upper level and landing near a pile of trash as she continued the pursuit. When they returned to the office, Takao scolded them because the neighbors had filed a complaint about the damaged trash area caused during the incident. Michiru explained that they had successfully secured the target, but Takao still reprimanded them, reminding them that they should handle their work more carefully to maintain a good reputation. Not long after, Kazuki showed up and firmly warned Tsukasa not to push Ayala too hard. Tsukasa felt intimidated by Kazuki's tone. Michiru also received a scolding from Kazuki, which made Tsukasa wonder if there was something special about their relationship. Michiru explained that Ayala and Kazuki used to be partners. She realized that the situation had not been Tsukasa's fault and said she would talk to Kazuki about it. Tsukasa was confused by Michiru's sudden change in attitude. According to her, if Tsukasa ended up quitting, it would reflect poorly on her as a trainer. Zack joked that after seeing Ayala in action, Tsukasa must have thought he was in serious trouble. Michiru got annoyed hearing that, but Tsukasa denied it. Starting the next day, Michiru assigned Tsukasa a task to handle on his own. He seemed unsure, especially since the Giftia's owner was known to be difficult to deal with. Suddenly, Ayala approached him and asked him to let her take on the difficult assignment instead. The next day, Ayala and Tsukasa went to Chizu's house. Ayala invited him to have some tea together, but Chizu refused and shut the door again. The following day, they came back once more, and she offered tea along with some cookies, yet Chizu still turned them down, unwilling to waste his time. The day after that, Ayala and Tsukasa returned again, and this time Ayala brought some honey. However, Chizu, still as stubborn as ever, rejected her and refused to listen to anything she had to say. Later that day, Ayala was watering some plants when Tsukasa asked Michiru whether Ayala might be feeling discouraged. Michiru admitted she was not entirely sure. Tsukasa then approached Ayala and asked if the herbal plants she was tending had been grown by her. With a slightly gloomy expression, Ayala explained that the plants she had were chamomile, thyme, and rosemary. Her expression reminded Tsukasa of the time he had run into her in the elevator before. Ayala reassured him that she was fine, but Tsukasa still asked her not to push herself too hard. The deadline to retrieve Nina was the next day, and Tsukasa believed Chizu would be even more stubborn than before. Ayala responded by saying that she had a job and a purpose in life, and that she already had a plan for the next day. The next day, Tsukasa and Ayala returned to Chizu's house again. This time, Chizu shouted that he would never hand Nina over to them. even though Ayala had brought plenty of food. Earlier, Michiru had asked them to handle Nina's retrieval, but Tsukasa realized that they had not made any real progress. He started to think they needed another approach. Suddenly, Ayala climbed over Chizu's fence, making Tsukasa visibly anxious about what she was doing. She managed to get inside and soon met Nina, offering her some lemon verbena tea. Nina commented that Ayala seemed cute. Not long after, Chizu arrived and scolded Ayala for forcing her way into his home, even threatening to call the police. Nina then asked Chizu not to drive Ayala away and suggested that they at least let her take a bath first. Chizu agreed, which made Nina happy, and Ayala quickly went to clean herself up in the bathroom. At that moment, Chizu told Tsukasa that they should leave after Ayala finished. Tsukasa offered an alternative solution, suggesting replacing Nina's OS with a new one in the same body, allowing her to stay with Chizu but with completely different memories and personality. This suggestion angered Chizu. He insisted that Nina was his only family, and no matter what happened, he wanted to stay with her. He even expressed that losing her was something he could not accept. Tsukasa realized that Chizu's feelings were completely valid. After finishing her bath, Nina helped dry Ayala's hair. She often took care of Chizu in the same way, though he would sometimes get upset about it. Nina thought that Chizu simply did not want to admit that he was getting older. She apologized if Chizu had caused any trouble for Ayala and Tsukasa. Ayala then asked whether Nina understood that they had come to retrieve her, and whether she felt afraid of losing her memories and personality. Ayala admitted that she herself would be afraid in that situation. Nina shared that she truly wanted to continue living with her grandmother, but she knew it was not possible. Once the time limit passed, she would begin to malfunction and potentially cause trouble for others, which would only make Chizu sad. Because of that, she knew she could not stay with him forever. Even so, she wished to part with a smile. Unbeknownst to them, Chizu overheard everything Nina said. He then approached Tsukasa and realized that he had been acting selfishly. In the end, Chizu agreed to sign the consent form and asked Ayala to prepare tea for 4 people. Once the tea was served, Nina immediately took a sip and found it truly delicious. After sharing tea together, Nina prepared to leave. Before going, she gently reminded Chizu to dry his hair after bathing, to take his daily medication, and to water the flowers once a day. Nina began to cry, but Chizu reassured her that he would be alright. With a smile, Nina said her goodbye and the retrieval was completed. Ayala and Tsukasa then made their way back to the office. Tsukasa could not stop thinking about how deeply saddened Chizu had looked. He realized that, in the end, he had not been able to do much. Suddenly, Ayala mentioned that she urgently needed to use the bathroom. She had drunk too much tea and could no longer hold it. Tsukasa immediately panicked and urged her to hold on just a little longer. The Sai Terminal Service, also known as the Retrieval Department, has a total of 29 offices worldwide. Tsukasa works at Terminal Service No. 1, which handles the Far East region where the headquarters is located. One day, Takao was preparing to head to a meeting at headquarters. His stomach was hurting badly, so he asked Ayala to make him some tea. Ren suggested that Takao should stop asking Ayala for tea, since she was now Tsukasa's marksman. However, Takao said he was already used to asking her, so it should not be a problem. Not long after, a man walked in and greeted everyone, and Michiru immediately looked embarrassed upon seeing him. Tsukasa asked who the man was, and it turned out to be Yasutaka, one of the spotters who had been working there for nearly 10 years. Kazuki scolded him for leaving his duties behind and asked where he had been all this time. Yasutaka casually replied that he had been on vacation and attending business visits. Kazuki brought up his visit to a female friend's house, but Yasutaka brushed it off and told her not to worry about it, which clearly annoyed her. Ayala brought over the tea that was meant for Takao, but Yasutaka immediately drank it instead. He gently patted Ayala on the head and said that her tea was always the best. Then he greeted Tsukasa, and Tsukasa introduced himself. Yasutaka asked if Tsukasa was the one who had connections and was personally brought in by their boss, Shinya. Hearing that made Tsukasa visibly uncomfortable. Yasutaka became curious about Tsukasa's relationship with Shinya. In the past, Tsukasa had failed to graduate due to appendicitis. Shinya, who was a friend of Tsukasa's father, had given him a chance, but with a condition that if Tsukasa did not bring value to the company, he would be sent back home. Not long after, Sherry, Yasutaka's partner, showed up and assigned him a task. She was clearly upset that he had been absent for several days and demanded an explanation, but instead, Yasutaka invited Tsukasa out for a meal. Sherry quickly pulled him away and dragged him off to complete their work. On another day, Yutaka was working with his Giftgia partner, Max. Suddenly, Ayala approached him and asked him to hand Max over to her. She also told Yutaka not to resist since she and Tsukasa were from Terminal Service. Without hesitation, Yutaka grabbed Max and ran. Tsukasa was confused by Ayala's sudden, intense behavior, but she calmly said she did not understand what he meant. Tsukasa then ran after Yutaka. In the middle of the chase, Ayala tripped and fell. Her nose started bleeding and Tsukasa quickly wiped it for her. Noticing that several people were staring at them with disapproving looks, Tsukasa thought they might need to write an apology letter later. Michiru soon arrived to apologize to the workshop staff for the disturbance. After that, she and the others returned to the office. This incident marked the third time Tsukasa and Ayla had made a mistake, forcing Michiru to step in and apologize on their behalf. She was frustrated, especially since she had assigned them what she thought was an easy task. Yet Tsukasa had failed to obtain a signature 3 times in a row. Michiru believed things would not have gone this way if Tsukasa had trusted Ayla more. She bluntly said that Tsukasa was unreliable and even implied that he had gotten the job without putting in real effort, concluding that he was not useful. Ayla tried to defend him, but Tsukasa chose to apologize instead and promised that he would be more careful moving forward. Back at the office, Michiru was still upset with Tsukasa, but she began to wonder if she had been too harsh on him. Zack commented that Michiru often spoke at length without thinking things through, only to regret it afterward. Yasutaka then asked if she had argued with Tsukasa, but Michiru denied it. He teased that maybe she was feeling conflicted because she liked Tsukasa. Michiru firmly rejected that idea, saying there was no way she and Tsukasa could have that kind of relationship. Yasutaka kept teasing her until she became irritated. Out of nowhere, Kazuki asked Michiru what she thought about Ayla. Michiru replied that Ayla seemed fairly ordinary. That afternoon, Tsukasa was standing by a vending machine buying a drink. Out of nowhere, Kazuki showed up, called out to him, and asked if he could spare some time after work. Tsukasa didn't really have a choice and ended up agreeing. Later that night, Kazuki took him to a bar for some drinks. She found it strange that Tsukasa wasn't drinking at all. He explained that he wasn't old enough to drink yet. When Kazuki asked whether he was getting used to working with Ayla, Tsukasa hesitated. Kazuki quickly picked up on that and figured he was probably unsure about Ayla's way of thinking. Tsukasa then asked Kazuki to tell him more about Ayla, since she used to be Ayla's partner. However, Kazuki said that even if she shared everything, it wouldn't really change anything, and that things between Tsukasa and Ayla were something they had to figure out on their own. She admitted that she felt guilty for pairing Ayla with him, knowing that Ayla was the reason things had become complicated. Even so, Kazuki described Ayla as someone special, and she hoped Tsukasa could grow closer to her. She laughed awkwardly afterward, realizing she might not be in the position to say something like that. Deep down, Kazuki actually wished she herself could be closer to Ayla. Then, half-jokingly and clearly tipsy, she accused Tsukasa of being a lolicon and tightly grabbed his hand. Tsukasa winced in pain and immediately denied the accusation. Kazuki, now visibly irritated, started venting. She mentioned that Takao, the section chief, and Shenya, the boss, wanted to improve efficiency and other things, but none of it had worked out yet. She complained that she still hadn't found any answers and couldn't understand why she had to learn about methods related to memory disposal. Her words left Tsukasa deep in thought. As Kazuki became heavily intoxicated, she suddenly pulled Tsukasa into a tight embrace. Not long after, Yasutaka arrived and greeted them. It turned out he was a regular at the bar. Suddenly, Kazuki collapsed and lost consciousness. Yasutaka was surprised and wondered how much she had drunk. Tsukasa guessed that she simply had a low tolerance since she had only finished 3 glasses. After that, Tsukasa returned to the office. Ring was surprised to see him back and soon said goodbye before heading home. Tsukasa turned on his computer and just then, Ayla sent him a message saying she was training in the unit testing room. Tsukasa immediately headed there. Inside, Ayla was diving in a pool while 2 people observed her through monitors. Tsukasa was surprised that such a facility even existed in the office. He then met an engineer from the terminal service, Eru, along with her partner, Master Mikijiro. Curious, Tsukasa asked what Ayla was doing. Eru and Master Mikijiro explained that they were compiling data to measure Ayla's physical capabilities. At one point, Eru noticed Tsukasa repeatedly glancing at her notes and quickly stopped him. Tsukasa then asked if Ayla trained like that every day. Eru denied it and explained that Ayla had been visiting more often since becoming Tsukasa's partner. She also mentioned that Ayla had seemed more tense lately and needed extra care. Eru hoped Ayla could get some rest, especially after spending so much time serving tea and then suddenly being sent back into fieldwork. Master Mikijiro interrupted Eru, pointing out that she had been talking too much. Eru immediately apologized and returned to recording Ayla's movement data. Not long after, Ayla resurfaced from the pool and noticed Tsukasa greeting him. Tsukasa apologized for watching her without permission, but Ayla said she wasn't trying to hide anything anyway. He asked why she was training so intensely, assuming she was worried about their work. Ayla admitted that ever since returning to field duty, her body hadn't been moving properly. She felt that she was only becoming a burden to Tsukasa. Tsukasa reassured her, saying it was probably just a matter of time before her body adjusted again. However, Ayla explained that it wasn't just during physical tasks. Her movements also felt off when she was negotiating with clients. Tsukasa asked why that was happening, and Ayla suddenly mentioned that she hadn't properly warmed up. Tsukasa didn't quite understand what she meant, and Ayla became visibly embarrassed after saying it. As a marksman, she didn't want to keep causing problems. She even said she would be willing to disband their team if Tsukasa ever got tired of her. In response, Tsukasa quickly finished the tea Ayla had prepared and explained that he believed in following the manual since it was important for work. From that point on, he tried searching for guidance in the manuals, but it seemed pointless because none of them offered specific answers for their situation. In the end, he realized he would just have to adapt to whatever came their way. Tsukasa then offered to handle negotiations himself. Even though a spotter's role was to supervise the marksmen, he believed that since they were a team, they should support each other. He promised to help Ayla until she could adjust again. He encouraged her to give it a try, and Ayla agreed. Tsukasa decided that he would create his own kind of manual moving forward. After that, Ayla excused herself to go to the restroom. Before leaving, she thanked Tsukasa and promised that she would keep trying her best. Meanwhile, Tsukasa quietly encouraged himself to stay determined as well. That night, Michiru could not stop thinking about Tsukasa. She felt like the team made up of Tsukasa and Ayla was not reliable. The next morning, she greeted Ayla and asked what she thought about Tsukasa. Tsukasa gave her a sharp look, and Michiru quickly clarified that she did not mean anything strange by asking. She simply wanted to know if Ayla felt uncomfortable being partnered with him, since lately it seemed like Ayla had been pushing herself too hard. Michiru suggested that Ayla should refuse to be Tsukasa's partner if she truly could not handle it. However, Ayla firmly insisted that there was nothing to worry about, emphasizing that everything that had happened was her own fault and that Tsukasa was not to blame at all. Michiru grew irritated and found it hard to believe that Ayla had no fault whatsoever. Ayla quietly expressed her hope that Michiru would not get angry at Tsukasa. Not long after, Michiru noticed Tsukasa talking with Constance. She walked over and asked what they were discussing. Constance explained that Tsukasa had asked a rather unusual question. He wanted to know what someone should be thinking about during negotiations with a Giftia's owner. Hearing that, Michiru scolded him. She explained that Giftias have hearts, just like their owners, and that their job was not simply about retrieving them. If they treated it that way, they would only cause more pain. The most important thing was to understand the feelings of both the Giftia and the owner. She added that this approach was something their terminal service team followed, even though it often frustrated headquarters, and that Tsukasa needed to put it into practice. Tsukasa thanked her for the advice, and Michiru brushed it off as nothing special. After that, Michiru called Zack to head out for work, but Zack seemed hesitant, pointing out that they had already handled a lot that day and wondering why she was in such a rush. Still, Michiru pulled him along anyway. Before leaving, she apologized to Tsukasa for speaking harshly earlier. Tsukasa was surprised to hear that from her. Meanwhile, Ran and Takao watched the scene from above. Takao commented that Michiru seemed unusually fired up for so early in the day, while Ren suggested that she might just be going through a difficult phase. Takao then found himself thinking about his own daughter, who no longer wanted to talk to him. That night, Tsukasa still had not gone home, as he was preparing something for the next day. Yasutaka remarked that Tsukasa had been working hard, and Tsukasa wondered why Yasutaka was still at the office. Yasutaka joked that Sherry was a demanding boss who kept him busy. He then asked why Tsukasa had not left yet. Tsukasa explained that he was working on his own guidebook. Yasutaka said that sounded impressive, but Tsukasa pointed out that Ayla was actually putting in even more effort than he was. Every day she practiced to regain her speed, but no matter how much she trained, she still seemed stiff. Yasutaka commented that Ayla was incredibly persistent, though she should have realized that her efforts would not change things. Tsukasa asked what he meant by that. Yasutaka then asked if Tsukasa had seen Ayla's physical data, which showed a steady decline. Tsukasa responded that this was exactly why she was training, to try to recover her abilities. Yasutaka explained that Giftias learn just like humans and other androids, but regaining lost speed was not something they were designed to do. They were not programmed to forget, so practice would not reverse the changes. In other words, no matter how hard Ayla trained, she would remain the same. Yasutaka believed that Ayla had already realized this herself. At that same time, Ayla was by the edge of a pool, carefully tying knots in a rope. There were already many knots lined up beside her. Tsukasa watched her from a distance and began to understand that she had been pushing herself so hard because she did not want to depend on him. He remembered her words about promising to do her best. The next day, Tsukasa and Ayla returned to see Yutaka. Yutaka looked frightened and tried to run away, but Tsukasa stopped him and calmly introduced himself as part of the Sai terminal service, there to remind him about Max's retrieval date. He apologized for startling Yutaka during their previous visit. This time, they were able to carry out the negotiation in a calm and friendly manner. After Max finished his work, he agreed to the retrieval. Although visibly saddened, Yutaka was willing to sign the necessary documents. In the end, Tsukasa and Ayla successfully completed their mission that day. Later that afternoon, Yasutaka spoke with Kazuki about their report. Kazuki admitted she had not expected the two of them to perform so well. Then, Yasutaka suddenly brought up something serious. He wondered if Kazuki had told Tsukasa that Ayla only had about 2,000 hours left. One night, Tsukasa was spending time with Ayla, but she had been unusually quiet the whole time. He gently asked if she was hungry or if there was anything she wanted to eat, offering to go get it for her. Instead, Ayla asked if he wanted some tea. Tsukasa declined and suggested they eat together instead. However, Ayla fell silent again, lost in her own thoughts. Tsukasa started to feel that she might be a rather reserved and hard-to-read person. Earlier, Ren had informed Tsukasa that starting that day, he would be living with Ayla. That news had completely caught him off guard. According to Ren, since a spotter and a marksman were partners, the rules required them to live together. Tsukasa had double-checked with Sherry, who confirmed it, mentioning that she shared a room with Yasutaka, even though he rarely came home. Ren then asked Tsukasa to move into the company dormitory where Ayla stayed. Tsukasa could hardly believe that he would begin living with Ayla right away. Meanwhile, Michiru quietly whispered to Kazuki, commenting on Tsukasa's somewhat awkward expression. She felt irritated by how he seemed hesitant about the situation. Kazuki, on the other hand, suspected that Michiru might actually be jealous, though she quickly denied it. Kazuki then asked Michiru to keep an eye on both Tsukasa and Ayla. At that moment, Tsukasa and Ayla exchanged glances. Ayla mentioned that she would show him his room after work. Once their shift ended, the two headed to the company dormitory, a large building used by all departments. Their rooms were located next to Michiru and Zach's. Tsukasa looked nervous as he stepped inside, still unable to process that he would now be living with Ayla. Ayla calmly told him to treat the place like his own home and not worry about her. Tsukasa found her words confusing. Without further explanation, Ayla changed out of her uniform and sat down quietly, deep in thought. Tsukasa tried several times to talk to her and ask what was wrong, but she remained silent. The next morning, Tsukasa went to a cafe for breakfast. While eating, he found himself reading Ayla's diary. One entry, dated April 10th, described an argument she had with Kazuki. In it, Ayla wrote about how intimidating Kazuki could be and even joked that Kazuki might have trouble finding a husband if she kept acting so strict. Tsukasa was surprised at how different Ayla's diary version of events felt compared to reality. Suddenly, Michiru appeared and startled him. Not long after, Zach and Eru joined them. Michiru quickly realized that the book Tsukasa was reading was Ayla's diary. She immediately questioned why he had it and began to suspect that he might have improper intentions toward Ayla. Tsukasa denied it, but Michiru did not believe him. She even asked if he had ever been on a date before. Tsukasa stayed quiet, which only confirmed her suspicion that he lacked experience. She firmly stated that she would not allow him to do anything inappropriate to Ayla. Zach seemed puzzled by Michiru's constant lecturing. Even though she kept scolding Tsukasa, Eru showed support for him. She even offered to give advice on how to make his life with Ayla more enjoyable, jokingly calling it a lucky guy operation. Eru told Tsukasa to quickly write down what she was about to say. She described what she called a golden opportunity, but her suggestion was clearly inappropriate and unrealistic. Michiru immediately interrupted, calling out Eru's idea as ridiculous and telling Tsukasa to stop taking notes. She warned him once again that if he crossed any boundaries with Ayla, she would personally kick him out of the dormitory. After that, Michiru went back to eating her breakfast. Tsukasa began to feel like he was in serious trouble. Eru then said that since she had given him advice, she expected something in return. She asked Tsukasa to convince Ayla to wear a dress that she had made. According to Eru, Ayla had never accepted gifts from anyone before, even though Eru had tried many times without success. Later, Tsukasa returned to his room. For a brief moment, he considered opening the bathroom door, remembering Eru's suggestion, but he quickly stopped himself. Suddenly, Ayla came out of the bathroom, startling him. Tsukasa immediately insisted that he had not seen anything. Ayla did not respond and simply continued getting dressed. At the office, Tsukasa seemed unusually unmotivated. Ren noticed and asked if he was having trouble adjusting to life in the dormitory. Tsukasa admitted that he could not understand what Ayla was thinking. Shortly after, Ayla quietly served him tea and then walked away, leaving him surprised by her distant behavior. Tsukasa later explained to Ren that Ayla tended to ignore him while they were in their room. Ren suggested that Tsukasa should try to show that he was dependable. If he could prove himself as someone she could rely on, Ren believed that Ayla would eventually open her heart to him. While in his room, Tsukasa tried to talk to Ayla, who was sitting quietly by herself. However, she refused to respond to him. Trying to distract himself, he started doing pull-ups and lifting a barbell with enthusiasm. Unfortunately, he lost control and the barbell slipped, crashing into the wall and damaging it. Hearing the loud noise, Michiru immediately came to check on him. She was clearly annoyed when she saw Tsukasa without a shirt and assumed he was acting inappropriately. The next day, Tsukasa shared the incident with his coworkers. Takao warned him to stop putting on those overly macho displays in his room, explaining that what he really needed was better communication. Meanwhile, Rain quietly whispered to Zack, pointing out that Takao himself seemed troubled lately because his daughter found him intimidating. Zack even mentioned how Takao's daughter had asked for her father's laundry to be separated. Despite that, Takao still offered Tsukasa several pieces of advice, confidently assuring him that things would work out if he followed them. Back in the dorm room, Ayala once again sat quietly, lost in thought, while Tsukasa prepared to cook. Earlier, Takao had told him that a man who could cook was impressive. Tsukasa asked Ayala to try his cooking later, feeling confident because he had followed Takao's instructions. However, things quickly went wrong when the flames suddenly flared up. Panicking, Tsukasa shouted, which triggered the automatic fire extinguisher. Hearing the commotion, Michiru rushed over again. Tsukasa, still panicked, asked her how to turn off the system. The following day, Tsukasa told everyone about what had happened. Constance encouraged him not to stay discouraged and asked what he thought he should do next. When Tsukasa turned the question back to him, Constance suggested that being gentle with Ayala was important. Since Ayala enjoyed going out, he believed that becoming a good companion for her trips might help improve their relationship. Later in the dorm, Ayala once again sat quietly before heading to the bathroom. Tsukasa noticed her clothes scattered on the floor and tried to pick them up so she would not trip over them. While doing so, he slipped, rolled, and bumped into the wall. Hearing the noise, Michiru came to check again, only to witness another situation that made Tsukasa seem suspicious in her eyes. The next day, Constance suggested that Tsukasa try giving Ayala flowers. Tsukasa followed the advice, bought some flowers, and gave them to her. However, bee suddenly flew out from the bouquet. Startled, Tsukasa tried to chase it around the room. Once again, the noise brought Michiru over. When she saw the bee land on Tsukasa's nose, she immediately reacted and swatted it away. The next day, Rain suggested that Tsukasa try wearing something different to gain Ayala's trust. Tsukasa ended up wearing a dress made by Aru. He asked Ayala for her opinion on his appearance and even struck a pose like a hero protecting the world. Unfortunately, he lost his balance, hit a table, and fell. As expected, Michiru came to check on the disturbance once again. The following day at the office, Tsukasa told everyone about the previous night. Yasutaka pointed out that Tsukasa might not actually be at fault, since he had not yet learned how to understand a girl's feelings. He suggested a questionable secret technique, but Tsukasa did not seem convinced. That night, Tsukasa tried once more to talk to Ayala, but she simply offered him some tea instead. He nodded and she went to prepare it. Suddenly, Ayala stumbled, and Tsukasa quickly caught her. They ended up in an awkward position as he supported her. For a brief moment, Tsukasa remembered Yasutaka's advice, but he chose not to follow it. Hearing the noise again, Michiru came to check the room. She could not understand why Tsukasa caused disturbances almost every night. Seeing the situation, she became upset and scolded him. The next day, as usual, Tsukasa shared the story with his coworkers. Zack showed understanding, recognizing how challenging it could be for Tsukasa to live together with a girl. Kazuki asked Tsukasa to talk for a bit. She realized that he still hadn't been able to get close to Ayala, and she understood that it wasn't really his fault since Ayala sometimes acted that way around others. Tsukasa admitted that he didn't understand the reason behind it. Kazuki had a feeling that Ayala was trying to act more like a machine than a person. She suggested that Tsukasa invite Ayala to go out during their day off. Tsukasa was sure that Ayala would turn him down, but Kazuki advised him to just be honest about what he wanted to do with her and not force anything. She believed that he and Ayala could actually make a good match. Kazuki said this based on her 6 years of living with Ayala. She also told Tsukasa that she was counting on him, though she added half-jokingly that he should not get too carried away with Ayala. Tsukasa agreed to do his best. While sitting in the car, Tsukasa kept thinking about what he should say to invite Ayala out. Not long after, Ayala arrived and startled him a little. They quickly headed to their next Giftia retrieval location. On the way, Tsukasa asked if she would accompany him the next day to look for a gift for a coworker. To his surprise, Ayala immediately agreed. The next day, they went to the city center. Even though Tsukasa had successfully invited Ayala out, he still had no idea what he should actually do. He found it odd that Ayala was wearing her uniform and asked if she had any other clothes. They then headed into a clothing store. Tsukasa asked Ayala to try on some outfits, and she questioned why she needed to do that. He explained that his coworker had a similar size to her. Inside the fitting room, Ayala struggled to put on the clothes and asked Tsukasa for help. He was caught off guard when he saw her tangled up in the outfit. Shortly after, a store clerk came over. By accident, Ayala ended up tearing the clothes, and the clerk asked them to pay for the damaged item. Ayala apologized for causing trouble for Tsukasa. He brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. Still, she sincerely apologized, saying she often felt like she was not useful. Later, while riding the elevator, Tsukasa asked if she remembered the first time they met there and what she had wanted to buy back then. Ayala then led him to a herbal plant shop. Tsukasa asked if she wanted to buy something, but she declined. He started thinking that maybe a herbal plant would make a good gift. When he asked Ayala to recommend the best one, she said her opinion didn't really matter and instead asked about his coworker. Tsukasa described the coworker as someone who didn't talk much, tended to be alone at home, and barely ate, to the point where he was not even sure if she ate at all. However, he also mentioned that she was very good at the things she liked. Ayala commented that the person sounded a bit difficult, but Tsukasa laughed it off and disagreed. In the end, Ayala picked a herbal plant that suited the coworker's personality. After finishing their shopping, Tsukasa thanked her and Ayala said she was glad she could be helpful. After that, Tsukasa invited Ayala to an amusement park. When they arrived, the place was packed with people. Ayala wondered why they went there when they had already found the gift. Tsukasa admitted that the gift was actually meant for her. Hearing that, Ayala asked if that meant she was really that troublesome. Tsukasa quickly denied ever thinking that. She then asked why he wanted to give her a gift. Tsukasa explained that it was to celebrate them as partners. Ayala responded that while they were indeed partners, their relationship was strictly professional. Tsukasa asked her not to see it that way because he wanted to spend time with her outside of work and create meaningful memories together. Suddenly, Ayala said she couldn't continue with that idea, explaining that she was not created to spend time like that with humans. She became emotional and decided to go home. Tsukasa felt guilty and couldn't understand why she reacted that way. He found himself confused about how to grow closer to her. Back in the dorm room, Tsukasa saw Ayala quietly lost in thought. He wondered if she had always preferred being alone, especially since Eru had once mentioned that Ayala had never received a gift from anyone. Tsukasa then gave her a keychain he had bought at the amusement park. Ayala looked surprised as she accepted it. Tsukasa told her that she didn't have to keep it if she didn't want to. Ayala apologized for leaving him earlier. Tsukasa then asked her to make him some tea and sit with him for a while. That night, even after Tsukasa had fallen asleep, Ayala continued to look at the gift he had given her. One morning, Tsukasa woke up first, and not long after that, Ayala woke up too. He greeted her with a cheerful good morning, and to his surprise, she responded. Wanting to make sure he was not imagining things, he greeted her again, and she replied once more. Tsukasa could not hold back his excitement. He started shouting and jumping around because it was unusual for Ayala to respond to him like that in their dorm room. Michiru came in and immediately told him to quiet down. Tsukasa eagerly told her that Ayala had just responded to his greeting. He admitted how happy he felt, but Michiru suddenly realized that Ayala was in the middle of changing her clothes. Without hesitation, she kicked Tsukasa out of the room. Later that morning, Tsukasa could not stop smiling to himself. Michiru told him to stop daydreaming about Ayala changing, but he quickly denied thinking about anything like that. Zack then chimed in, saying that he had seen Tsukasa reading a strange book the day before, something like a guide to making someone fall in love. Hearing that made Michiru visibly irritated. Tsukasa admitted that he had bought the book, but it had not been very helpful. Michiru wondered out loud how Ayala could still be okay living with someone like Tsukasa. Unexpectedly, Ayala calmly said that she did not mind living with him. Zack commented that it seemed like Tsukasa and Ayala were getting closer, and he grew curious about what might have happened between them. His teasing only made Michiru more annoyed, and she ended up venting her frustration by telling Tsukasa to clean up his desk. Even she seemed confused about why the situation bothered her so much. Not long after, Kazuki arrived to assign their tasks. That day, they had 9 clients to handle. Kazuki asked Michiru to take care of Minerva and Carl, warning her to be careful since Minerva's owner might cause trouble. She then asked Sherry about Yasutaka. Sherry replied that he had been difficult to reach but promised to pass along the message later. Tsukasa was assigned to retrieve Marcia, and he accepted the task without hesitation. Michiru questioned why the job was not given to her, but Kazuki explained that she wanted Tsukasa to gain more experience. She also reminded him to report immediately if he ran into any problems. Ren then shared information from upper management about the black market becoming active again. He urged everyone to stay cautious while carrying out their duties. Kazuki added that the criminals were using the name of the terminal service as a cover to illegally retrieve Giftia units. Even though it was against the law, the police had not been able to catch them. Rain reminded the team to report anything suspicious right away, and Takao emphasized the importance of working efficiently. Tsukasa and Ayala then headed to their destination. Along the way, Ayala explained about children who had lost their biological parents and were raised by androids. In this case, the owner of the Giftia named Marcia was a boy named Soda. In many ways, Marcia had taken on the role of a mother figure for him. When they arrived at the apartment, Marcia greeted them warmly. Tsukasa introduced himself and Marcia immediately hugged Ayla after meeting her. She invited them inside and mentioned that Sota had not returned from school yet. She then offered them some tea while they waited. Looking at the photos on the wall, Tsukasa noticed how close Marcia and Sota seemed. Marcia described Sota as a somewhat spoiled child. She quietly expressed concern about whether he would be able to live independently after she was gone. Sota's biological parents had passed away 3 years earlier. According to Marcia, they had been wonderful people who even treated her like part of the family. She often went shopping with Sota's mother during holidays, picking out clothes for Sota and his father, since his father was not very good at choosing outfits. Sota's mother had a strong presence and was well known around the neighborhood, while his father was equally impressive in sports. He would often take Marcia and Sota out for jogging together. Whenever Sota started to get tired, his mother would suddenly appear with a warm smile and a basket of snacks. At that moment, Sota came home and asked why Marcia kept talking about those memories again. Marcia happily greeted him, but Sota looked at Tsukasa and Ayla with suspicion and asked who they were. When Marcia explained that they were from the terminal service, Sota told them not to believe her, claiming that she was lying. Tsukasa calmly asked Sota to sign the agreement papers. Sota questioned whether it would be enough if he just wrote his name. Then, in a cold tone, he told Tsukasa to hurry up and take Marcia away, saying that he no longer needed her. Tsukasa was taken aback by his words. Marcia gently reminded Sota to be polite to their guests, but he refused to listen and said that he did not need to hear anything from her anymore. He snatched the agreement papers and signed his name, adding that Marcia was just a giftia. Tsukasa quickly pulled the papers back and stated that he could not accept a signature given with that kind of attitude. Sota, clearly upset, insisted that giftia could not be trusted and that they only ended up hurting people. Marcia firmly reminded Sota that his father once said that if he did not care about others, he would never find happiness. Sota brushed it off, since he did not know anything about his parents in the first place. He believed Marcia's stories about them were nothing more than lies, and he even doubted her sincerity when she said she would never leave him. Without another word, Sota walked away from them. Marcia admitted that he had been acting that way ever since he learned about his remaining time. When Tsukasa arrived at the office, he shared the situation with Michiru. In her opinion, Sota seemed to be going through an identity crisis. She did not blame Marcia, but she understood that hearing about a time limit must have made Sota realize that Marcia was a giftia, not his real family. Tsukasa realized that this was likely what led Sota to believe that everything about his parents was a lie. Michiru added that losing someone you truly trust can feel terrifying. When Tsukasa asked what they could do, Michiru suggested that the solution might be helping Sota believe in what he truly loved. She even offered to help Tsukasa, which made him very grateful. However, when Ayla suddenly arrived with tea, Michiru abruptly changed her mind, leaving Tsukasa confused about what had just happened. On that same day, a meeting was being held by the leader, Shinya, along with the heads of the terminal services. He acknowledged that most of them had been working hard to reduce expenses, except for Takao, the head of terminal service No-Own. Shinya pointed out that Takao's department had spent nearly 5 times more than the others. Takao promised to improve efficiency and explained that the budget had been used to enhance service quality and employee wages. Shinya was not interested in hearing any more explanations. He instructed Takao to prepare a detailed route plan before the next meeting and warned that if there was no improvement, he would take action himself. As the meeting ended, the other department heads quietly recognized how difficult Takao's position was and that his role could be at risk. Later that day, Tsukasa and Ayla returned to Sota's house and looked through his family photo album. They came across pictures from Sota's 5th birthday, and it turned out that the next day would be his birthday again. Marcia explained that the strawberry tart in the photo had been made by Sota's mother, and it tasted so good that Sota had almost finished it by himself. Tsukasa wondered how Sota could not remember any of it when the photos still existed. Marcia thought it might be because Sota had gone through emotional shock. After losing both of his parents, he had been in denial, but Marcia kept trying to make sure he did not believe those memories were fake. Not long after, Tsukasa found a strawberry tart recipe tucked inside the album. Marcia was thrilled since she had never figured out how to make it before. Tsukasa recalled Michiru's advice about helping Sota believe in what he loved. He then told Marcia that he and Ayla would help make a strawberry tart for Sota's birthday the next day. Marcia happily agreed with the idea and planned to decorate the entire room, recreating the warm smiles seen in the photos. She even asked Ayla to show her a smile, saying that Ayla would look even sweeter if she smiled more. Back in her dorm room, Ayla quietly reflected on what Kazuke had once said, that she would never forget the memories they shared while working together, but that they could no longer be partners and that it was for the best. Ayla then tried to smile and observed her reflection in the mirror. The next day, Ayla asked Tsukasa if their plan would really make Sota happy. She was ready to follow whatever decision Tsukasa made. Soon after, Sota left the house for school. while Tsukasa and Ayala prepared to carry out their plan. On his way, Sota noticed a young child happily spending time with his mother. Michiru approached him and introduced herself. She explained that she had also been raised by a Giftia, so she understood how he felt. She encouraged Sota to trust his memories, especially those from the past 3 years, believing that he still remembered them. However, Sota ran off, insisting that those memories were fake and that he could not trust them. Meanwhile, Tsukasa, Ayala, and Marcia started their cooking session. Marcia asked Tsukasa about his experience in the kitchen. He admitted that just the day before he had tried making a flambe but ended up burning it. Not long after, the doorbell rang and Marcia quickly went to answer it. Tsukasa and Ayala worked together to prepare the ingredients for the cake. Tsukasa carefully measured the butter on a scale. Soon after, Michiru arrived and immediately picked up the recipe. She seemed unsure about Tsukasa's abilities and worried that he might burn the cake again. Tsukasa was surprised to see both Michiru and Zack, especially since Michiru had refused to help the day before. She explained that she had changed her mind and decided to help Marcia instead. Marcia felt relieved, especially since Tsukasa did not seem very confident in cooking. Michiru quickly took charge, measuring and mixing the ingredients with ease. Marcia noticed how skilled she seemed and learned that Michiru had been cooking since she was young, mainly because she used to cook for her father. Michiru then started giving instructions. She told Tsukasa to sift the flour, while Ayala and Zack were asked to clean the strawberry stems and decorate the room. Tsukasa sifted the flour a bit too aggressively, which made him start sneezing. Michiru grew irritated, calling him a beginner and scolding him before showing him the proper technique. As she guided him, her face turned slightly red while holding his hand, leaving her confused about the unfamiliar feeling she experienced. She quickly brushed it off and scolded him again for holding her hand. Once the batter was ready, Marcia placed it in the oven. They all took a break while waiting for it to bake. Tsukasa mentioned that Michiru's arrival had really saved them. Michiru responded that as an android child, she could not just stand by and do nothing. Tsukasa then asked what she meant when she said she understood Sota's feelings. Michiru explained that her father, whom she called her guardian, had been retrieved 3 years ago. Her situation was the opposite of Sota's. She had been raised by her father alone for many years and had done everything she could to stay with him. Her father had become what was known as a wanderer. After 81,920 hours, Giftia begin to lose their personality and memories. Within about 10 hours after that, they rely only on instinct. In some cases, they may unintentionally harm humans. Even though their memories and personalities fade, their physical abilities remain, causing them to wander aimlessly. That is why they are called wanderers. Retrieving a Giftia after they become a wanderer is considered a very difficult and distressing situation, which is why retrieval must be done on time to prevent it. Michiru was surprised to see Tsukasa tearing up. He apologized for only just learning about it, but she told him to forget what she had shared. At that moment, Zack commented to Ayala that Michiru seemed like a caring guardian figure. He also noted that she had been the one to step in and help Tsukasa, suggesting that she might have been a bit too eager to act like his senior. Suddenly, Ayala asked Zack about how her smile looked. Zack responded honestly, saying that it came off as a bit unsettling. After that, they finished decorating the room and arranged the strawberries on top of the tart. Later that afternoon, Sota returned home. He was surprised to see the celebration Marcia and the others had prepared. He insisted that he had never asked for a birthday celebration. His emotions quickly turned into frustration, as he knew that even though Marcia had done all this, she would eventually have to leave him. When he saw the strawberry tart, memories from 3 years ago came rushing back. Sota began to cry as he ate the cake. He said that it did not taste good at all and that his mother's version had been much better. He then apologized for calling Marcia a liar earlier. Marcia gently told him that even though she would not always be there physically, they would always be connected. She reassured him that she, along with his parents, would always care about him. Hearing that, Sota thanked her and hugged her tightly. The day before the scheduled retrieval, a man came to Sota's apartment to pick up Marcia. He explained that he was replacing Tsukasa and Ayala, who were currently occupied with other duties. Sota appeared uneasy and intimidated in the man's presence. That day, Marcia had just finished shopping. With only 1 day left before her scheduled retrieval, she looked excited to spend her final moments with Sota. Suddenly, an unknown man approached her and used a weapon to incapacitate her. At the same time, Tsukasa received a call from Sota. He asked about Marcia's condition, but Sota explained that she still had not returned from shopping. Earlier, that same man had come to Sota's apartment asking about Marcia. He claimed to be from the service terminal and said he was replacing Tsukasa to pick her up. Sota sounded worried, clearly anxious about her safety. Ayala suspected that the man was likely connected to the black market. At that moment, Marcia only had 24 hours remaining. Sota asked if the man was Tsukasa and Ayala's colleague and expressed his hope that Marcia would be brought home safely. Tsukasa explained that the man had most likely deceived Sota and abducted Marcia, which left Sota in shock. He reassured him not to worry, promising that he and Ayala would find her and bring her back. Tsukasa asked Sota to stay at home and wait. After that, he contacted Kazuki and the others to inform them of the situation and asked everyone to split up to search for Marcia. Ren mentioned that if Marcia were to become a wanderer, it would be the first case in 3 years. However, Kazuki remained confident that it would not happen, since they still had 24 hours left. Takao suggested that they should report the situation to the director. Takao immediately contacted Director Shinya to report the issue. Shinya then instructed his assistant to reach out to our security. He told Takao and the others to continue searching while he tried to handle things from his side. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Ayala split up to search around the city center, but they could not find her. Tsukasa grew increasingly worried. Ayala suggested they double-check everything to be sure and reminded him to stay patient during the search. Tsukasa admitted that Michiru's story kept lingering in his mind, prompting him to ask Ayala what she knew about wanderers. Ayala explained that wanderer cases were extremely rare and that she believed it would not happen to Marcia, encouraging Tsukasa not to think negatively. Not long after, Michiru and Zack arrived, but they had not found any leads either. Everyone split up again to continue the search. Tsukasa entered several shops and asked customers if they had seen Marcia. Michiru and Zack searched along the streets, while Constance, Ren, Yasutaka, and Sherry continued looking in other areas. Tsukasa and Ayala spent the entire night searching around residential neighborhoods. Meanwhile, Sota remained at home, waiting anxiously. The next morning, Constance and Kazuki picked up Tsukasa and Ayala. Tsukasa ate quickly, and Kazuki assumed they had not slept at all, even though she had advised them to rest. Tsukasa insisted that he was fine, and Ayala said the same. Kazuki could not understand how they were still going. Tsukasa then asked where they were heading. Constance explained that he had gathered information from several sources about the possible location of the black market. Kazuki added that their wide network allowed them to obtain such leads. Before long, a group of people blocked their path. One of them informed Constance that the area was closed and told him to turn back. They were from R Security, just as Kazuki had expected. R Security was a private security company that worked in partnership with Sai. Kazuki questioned why the area was being restricted and pointed out that they likely did not have proper authorization. They insisted that she comply, but Kazuki firmly stated that she had business there. She even demanded that they call their leader. Tsukasa tried to calm her down as the situation grew tense. Hearing the commotion, the leader of R Security arrived. It turned out that he knew Kazuki and was surprised to see her. The leader, Shinonome, had not met Kazuki in 3 years. Kazuki asked if R Security was getting involved again for the same old reasons. Shinonome explained that their objective was only to capture the illegal retriever and that they had no concern for the abducted Giftia. Kazuki then asked how much information he had gathered. Shinonome seemed reluctant to share, but Kazuki pressured him by hinting that she could bring up his past performance from 3 years ago. Hearing that, Shinonome finally ordered his subordinates to show the map. Kazuki was surprised by his cooperation and remarked that it was no wonder he had been promoted so quickly. According to the information network, the black market hideout was believed to be somewhere around that area. All access points had already been sealed off, so no one could enter or leave. Kazuki was convinced that Marcia had to be somewhere inside. Shinonome questioned whether Kazuki was certain that the Giftia he was looking for did not have a transmitter. Kazuki responded that regulations about android protection and similar policies were, in his view, a violation of human rights. Shinonome found it strange that human rights would even apply to machines. Not long after that, Tsukasa and the others prepared to head out into the field. At that moment, Michiru found herself recalling a painful memory from 3 years earlier, during the retrieval of her father. Yasutaka explained that if a Giftia became a wanderer, it would turn into a serious problem, especially since their limiter would no longer function. Sherry added that a wanderer could treat something as dangerous as a car like it was just a toy. To capture a wanderer, they would either need to remove the limiter from a Giftia or use a weapon known as a program-destroying software, which only a spotter was authorized to handle. A single shot from that weapon was enough to completely shut down all of a Giftia's functions. It worked like a computer virus, meaning it would not harm any humans. Tsukasa asked whether a Giftia could be repaired after being hit by that shot, but Sherry explained that it was impossible. Tsukasa looked visibly shaken hearing that, though Yasutaka reminded him that it was only a last resort. For now, their priority was finding Marcia. Kazuki then informed everyone that they would be working together with R Security. Hearing this immediately upset Michiru, who could not understand why they had to cooperate with them. Kazuki told Michiru to stay strong and explained that R Security's goal was only to apprehend illegal retrievers. He made it clear that he would not allow R Security to lay a hand on Marcia. Kazuki planned to gather more information from Riho at R Security and reassured everyone that they would bring Marcia back safely. With that, the team split up to search for her. Before they left, Kazuki suddenly asked Tsukasa if he truly trusted Ayla. Constance then wondered if Kazuki thought Ayala should no longer return to fieldwork. Kazuki admitted that he had a feeling the incident from 3 years ago might repeat itself. Michiru still could not hide her frustration about having to work with our security. Tsukasa asked why she felt so strongly about them. Michiru explained that our security treated Giftia like mere objects, and in the past, they had even caused serious injury to Kazuki's leg. Tsukasa then asked if this had anything to do with her father. Zack stepped in and told Tsukasa to stop pretending he did not understand. Michiru bluntly called Tsukasa clueless and began explaining what had happened. Back then, Kazuki had been assigned to retrieve Michiru's father after he became a wanderer. However, Michiru refused to let her father be taken, so she ran away with him. When Kazuki arrived to carry out the retrieval, members of our security suddenly showed up and ordered them to step away from the Giftia. Kazuki insisted that he would handle the situation himself and asked them not to make things worse. Instead, our security pulled them back, creating more tension. In the chaos, Michiru's father lost control and began to act aggressively. Kazuki protected Michiru, but his leg was badly injured in the process. At the same time, our security opened fire and forcibly shut down her father. Michiru realized that everything that happened back then was partly her fault. Still, she believed that if our security had not interfered, things might not have ended that way. She could not understand why they were being forced to work with them again. Tsukasa promised that he would do everything he could, especially for Soda's sake, and that he would bring Marcia back safely. He believed that Kazuki's true priority was to find Marcia and prevent a tragedy like what happened to Michiru's father from happening again. They all split up to continue the search. Unexpectedly, Soda followed them to the location. At that moment, the clock showed 1:00 p.m., meaning Marcia's time limit had already run out. Yasutaka, along with our security, discovered the hideout and found the illegal retriever already dead. There were marks of a struggle on his face, which indicated that Marcia had already turned into a wanderer. Kazuki informed the others that Marcia had escaped and become a wanderer. Because of that, he withdrew the order to bring her back alive. He instructed everyone to do whatever it took to stop her. Kazuki was certain that our security would attempt to destroy Marcia, so at the very least, he wanted the terminal service team to take responsibility and be the ones to bring her back with their own hands. Tsukasa could not understand how things had ended up like this. Ayala asked him to stay quiet if they found Marcia, because she wanted to handle everything herself. She told him to just do what he could while stopping Marcia was her responsibility. The two of them then ran off to search for her. Tsukasa felt frustrated, especially since he had promised to bring Marcia back safely. Suddenly, Marcia's body lunged forward and crashed into Ayala, knocking both of them to the ground. Tsukasa was shocked to see Marcia, but Ayala quickly warned him not to come any closer. He remembered what Michiru had once said, that a Giftia who had passed 81,920 hours would begin to lose her personality and memories. Ayala prepared her weapon and stood her ground. She believed that Marcia's remaining memories were causing her pain. Out of nowhere, Soda appeared and called out to Marcia. Tsukasa was confused about why Soda was there. Marcia seemed sad for a moment, but her expression suddenly turned unsettling. She cried out and knocked Ayala down again, then moved toward Soda. Soda froze when he saw her condition. Tsukasa told Soda to run, but before he could react, Marcia grabbed him and ran off with him. Tsukasa immediately reported to the others that he had found Marcia in District B4 and that she had taken Soda. Kazuki was shocked to hear that Soda was involved and quickly asked about Ayala's condition. Tsukasa admitted that she was not doing well. Kazuki told them to hold on, saying she would send technicians right away. She also reminded Tsukasa not to let Ayala push herself too hard. Michiru and Zack quickly headed toward District B4. Tsukasa grew worried about Soda, knowing they could not just stand there and wait. Ayala insisted that she was fine and asked him to go after Marcia together, but Tsukasa refused to let her overexert herself. When Ayala tried to stand, she stumbled and nearly fell. She did not want to hold him back, so she asked him not to take over her role, reminding him that they were a team. Tsukasa gently supported her as they continued searching for Marcia. He began to realize that Ayala truly wanted to make Soda happy. From Ayala's perspective, having beautiful and joyful memories did not always lead to a happy ending. The more precious a memory was, the more painful and frightening it could become, both for the one leaving and the one left behind. Tsukasa finally understood that this fear was what made Ayala hesitate to create memories in the first place. Meanwhile, Kazuki stopped Shinonome, who had been monitoring the Wanderer situation. Shinonome insisted it was his responsibility, but Kazuki refused and asked him to give the terminal service team a chance to handle it. Shinonome protested, but Kazuki immediately brought up the injury in his leg as leverage. Annoyed that she kept mentioning it, he reluctantly agreed to give them 30 minutes. Tsukasa and Ayala eventually found Marcia again. Ayala looked weak and Tsukasa stepped forward, ready to handle the situation himself. Ayala warned him that it was dangerous, but Tsukasa told her not to worry. He approached Marcia and tried to talk to her. He promised that he would save her and protect Sota. He hoped that if even a small part of her memories remained, she would listen. He reminded her of how she had always protected Sota and stayed by his side. Marcia seemed to struggle as those memories surfaced. Tsukasa reached out his hand and asked her to take it, hoping to bring everything to a peaceful end. Just as it seemed like he might succeed, Sota suddenly regained consciousness and called out to her. In that instant, Marcia's behavior shifted again, and she lifted Sota off the ground. Tsukasa was shaken as he saw Sota struggling and in distress. Left with no other choice, he raised his weapon and aimed at Marcia. It broke his heart, especially knowing how meaningful their shared memories had been, but he felt forced to act. Just as he pulled the trigger, Ayla suddenly jumped in front of him. The next day, Ayla did not come to the office as usual. Kazuki and Ayla used to be on the same team. They were very close and even went to an amusement park together. One day, during a mission to capture a wanderer, Ayla suddenly weakened. Without waiting for backup, Kazuki chose to go into the field alone. Afterward, Ayla felt deeply sad and guilty when she learned that Kazuki had been injured during the capture, to the point that he had to undergo an amputation. After Kazuki recovered, Ayla apologized to him while they were talking at the amusement park. Kazuki said that he would never forget the memories they shared while working together. But he also made it clear that he did not want to be Ayla's partner anymore. After that, he left their dorm room, leaving Ayla visibly heartbroken. On that day, Ayla woke up in the infirmary. At the same time, Kazuki thanked the terminal service team for their help in handling Marcia's case. Even though the outcome was difficult, at least they had managed to prevent civilians from getting involved in the incident. Takao relayed a message from Director Shinya, saying that they were able to track down the black market's hideout thanks to assistance from our security. Kazuki said that he could not blame Tsukasa and Ayla for what had happened, since it was an accident. Earlier, Tsukasa had been forced to shoot Marcia's body in order to protect Sota, who was being choked. Marcia weakened and collapsed, and not long after that, Ayla also lost consciousness. Tsukasa kept thinking about the incident, which left him lost in thought. Kazuki explained that even though Tsukasa and Ayla were not at fault, the situation was still considered a loss for the team. Because of that, Tsukasa was assigned to office work until Ayla was able to return to the field. From that day on, Tsukasa spent his time handling office duties. At night, he went to the infirmary to stay by Ayla's side. When Ayla woke up, she saw Tsukasa asleep nearby. Mikijiro approached and mentioned that Tsukasa had insisted on staying with her, describing him as stubborn. After checking the monitor, Mikijiro said that Ayla would be able to move again the next day, although her treatment would still take a few more days. After Mikijiro left, Ayla looked at Tsukasa as he slept. She remembered Kazuki's words about no longer wanting to be her partner. Gently, she brushed Tsukasa's head. Not long after, Tsukasa woke up thinking it was already morning. Ayla told him it was still late at night and suggested that he should rest in the dorm instead. Tsukasa expressed how relieved he was that Ayla was okay. She had been asleep for 2 full days, and he mentioned that Mikijiro had warned him not to get too close to her. Still, Tsukasa admitted that he had been very worried. Ayla asked about Marcia and Sota, and Tsukasa explained that Kazuki and the others had helped him handle everything. Ayla apologized for not being able to do anything and asked if Tsukasa was alright. Tsukasa thanked her for worrying about him. He smiled and said that he was fine. Ayla could not understand how he was still able to smile because the memory of what happened to Marcia and Sota kept replaying in her mind that night. The next day, Eru reminded Ayla that she had not fully recovered yet and asked her to return to the infirmary after work. Eru was very enthusiastic and said she would take great care of Ayla. That morning, Ayla returned to the office and everyone greeted her warmly. Takao asked her to prepare some tea and apologized for always assigning her that task. Not long after, Tsukasa arrived and smiled when he saw Ayla back at work. Suddenly, Yasutaka invited Tsukasa to hang out that evening, joking about making the night fun. Tsukasa replied that he was still underage. Sherry scolded Yasutaka for making such remarks so early in the day. Michiru commented that both Yasutaka and Tsukasa were being inappropriate and warned Zack not to follow their example. Yasutaka grumbled that the girls in the office were difficult to deal with. When he noticed Ayla looking at him, he wondered if she might actually like him. Ayla calmly responded that she had not heard anything he said. Hearing that, Yasutaka dramatically claimed that his heart was shattered. He kept trying to persuade Tsukasa to join him later, while Tsukasa asked him to let it go. Ayla continued watching Tsukasa, so distracted that she accidentally spilled the tea and soaked Takao's documents. After finishing up the cleaning, Ayla returned to her seat. Tsukasa greeted her with a warm smile, mentioning that it felt a little strange since they had gone to the office separately that day, even though they had always gone together before. Out of nowhere, Ayla commented that Tsukasa's smile was beautiful. That caught both Tsukasa and Michiru off guard. Tsukasa looked visibly embarrassed by the compliment, while Michiru seemed genuinely confused. Later, in the student infirmary, Michiru asked Ayala if Tsukasa had done anything unusual to her. She assured Ayala that she would be on her side no matter what. Eru even added that she would not forgive Tsukasa if he had been teasing Ayala. The two of them urged Ayala to explain everything. Ayala admitted that she had been thinking about Tsukasa all the time, and without realizing it, she had started paying attention to him wherever he went, even though she had never really noticed him like that before. Michiru could not quite understand what was going on, but Eru confidently said that it was called love. Hearing that left Michiru shocked. Eru promised that she would help Ayala. In her opinion, they needed to observe Tsukasa more closely to understand his lifestyle. Michiru called it stalking, but Eru brushed it off, saying it was only natural to want to know everything about someone you liked. She even mentioned that she had gone through something similar herself. Eru then made a plan to start observing Tsukasa the next day. Michiru acted uninterested, but when the time came, she still ended up joining Eru and Ayala. The three of them watched Tsukasa from the rooftop using binoculars. Eru wondered what Tsukasa was reading. Ayala believed it was her diary. Eru found it strange that Ayala would let him read something so personal. Ayala explained that she had lent it to him because Tsukasa wanted to learn more about terminal service, and she believed reading it would help him understand things faster. Eru pointed out that a diary usually revealed a lot about a person, and she admitted she was curious enough to want to read it herself. Ayala, however, felt that her diary was not particularly interesting. Suddenly, Eru's binoculars were knocked out of her hands by an unexpected hit. It turned out that Sherry was the one responsible. She had spotted someone watching the office and suspected it might be a stalker, possibly even someone connected to the black market who could pose a serious threat. Ren commented that if it were truly someone dangerous, the main headquarters would likely be the real target. Yasutaka noted that Sherry was being extremely cautious. Sherry simply replied that her alertness was influenced by Yasutaka. Eru was shocked by what had just happened, and Ayala did not expect Sherry to be even more intimidating than Kazuki. Still, Eru refused to give up over something like that. She quickly came up with another plan to keep observing Tsukasa and invited Ayala to join her again. Michiru felt like she wanted to stay out of it this time. From then on, Eru and Ayala kept following Tsukasa wherever he went. They watched him at a cafe and even peeked in while he was helping Constance in the storage room. Constance warned Tsukasa to be careful because the load he was carrying was heavy. As expected, the box filled with documents turned out to be quite heavy. That night, Ren and Tsukasa accompanied Kazuki to a bar for drinks. Kazuki encouraged Tsukasa to drink as well, but he chose to have juice instead. Not long after, Ren told Tsukasa that he needed to head home right away because he was worried his wife might get upset. Kazuki became irritated and scolded Tsukasa for sounding too preachy. Eru and Ayala were there, quietly watching everything unfold. Tsukasa eventually returned to his dorm room late at night, but Eru and Ayala continued to follow him. Things took an awkward turn when Tsukasa suddenly shouted in shock after noticing Eru in the men's bathroom. Sherry immediately dragged Eru back to her room. Michiru could not believe things had escalated like that, and she told Ayala that she should not have gone along with Eru's plan. Ayala, however, said that Eru had genuinely been trying to help her. Michiru then asked why Tsukasa had been on Ayala's mind so much. Ayala admitted that she did not fully understand it herself, but she started feeling that way after the incident involving Marcia. Michiru reflected that Tsukasa did seem strong in situations like that. Ayala wondered if she had forgotten something important, and she questioned whether humans were naturally capable of forgetting things so easily. She also could not understand what Tsukasa had been feeling at that time. Michiru then explained that she and Kazuki had gone to see Soda to talk about Marcia's situation, but Tsukasa had already been there. Even though he was supposed to be handling office work, Tsukasa had chosen to go there instead, just to personally apologize to Soda. When Tsukasa met Soda, Soda asked where Marcia had gone. He felt upset because he had not even gotten the chance to say goodbye to her. As Soda dropped the photos filled with their memories, he questioned whether Tsukasa had not promised to bring Marcia back to him. Tsukasa broke down in tears and apologized, while Soda cried loudly, unable to accept that Tsukasa had not reunited him with Marcia. After that, Kazuki scolded Tsukasa and told him to stop getting involved. Michiru called Tsukasa foolish, believing that he would never forget what had happened, and maybe he did not even want to forget it. Ayala wondered why Tsukasa kept smiling despite everything. Michiru admitted she did not know either, but thought it might be because he was hurting. Ayala was a little surprised to see that Michiru could show such kindness. One night, Yasutaka visited an exclusive bar and unexpectedly ran into Shinya there. Shinya found it odd, since he thought Yasutaka preferred louder places. Yasutaka explained that he had only passed by Sluchino. He then asked whether Shinya was the one who got our security involved in Marcia's case. Shinya simply said that he had his own way of handling things. Yasutaka commented that being in a high-ranking position at a company seemed like it could give someone a headache. Meanwhile, Ayala had completed her medical checkup. Mikijiro confirmed that there were no more issues with her body. Kazuki asked if that meant Ayala could return to field work the next day, and Mikijiro agreed, telling Ayala to go back to the dorm. Kazuki reminded her not to push herself too hard. Ayala hesitated, asking if Kazuki was really okay with letting her return, since she kept causing trouble. Kazuki replied that whether Ayala caused trouble or not was something Tsukasa would decide. Then Kazuki handed Ayala her ID card. Ayala returned to the dorm, but Tsukasa was not there. She waited for him for quite a while. While waiting, she picked up one of his books titled How to Make a Girl Fall in Love. After a long time passed and Tsukasa still had not returned, Ayala went to the office. There she overheard Tsukasa talking with Kazuki. Kazuki mentioned that since teaming up with Tsukasa, Ayala seemed to have changed, although she also looked very exhausted. Tsukasa thought it might be because she had not worked in a while. Kazuki believed that Ayala's change was thanks to Tsukasa, which made him happy to hear. Then Kazuki suddenly revealed that Ayala only had about 1,000 hours left, roughly 1 month. Tsukasa was shocked. Kazuki explained that when the time came, they would retrieve Ayala just like any other Giftia. He clarified that he did not mean to make Tsukasa feel overwhelmed, but he needed to know Tsukasa's decision, whether he would continue working with Ayala or end their partnership and wait for a new Giftia. If Tsukasa chose Ayala, then in 1 month their time together would come to an end. Ayala felt heartbroken as she listened, but then she heard Tsukasa firmly decide to stay with her until the very end. He admitted that he could not imagine being with anyone else. Kazuki asked if he was truly sure, and Tsukasa confirmed his decision without hesitation. Hearing that, Ayala felt both happy and deeply moved. She returned to the dorm, prepared some tea, and waited for Tsukasa to come back. Not long after, Tsukasa arrived and his face lit up with happiness when he saw Ayala had returned. He mentioned that he should have been the one to pick her up and welcomed her back. Ayala responded with a gentle smile. They sat together, chatting and drinking tea. Ayala then asked what Tsukasa wanted, whether he needed something to eat, wanted to take a bath, or needed her help with anything. Hearing that, Tsukasa choked in surprise and wondered if Ero had taught her to say things like that. Ayala denied it, explaining that she had learned it from his book. Realizing that, Tsukasa became flustered and reacted in embarrassment. That day, Tsukasa could not stop thinking about Ayala's limited lifespan that Kazuki had mentioned earlier. He decided that he wanted to stay by Ayala's side until the very end. With that in mind, he planned to ask her out on a date. That morning, Tsukasa was surprised to see Ayala hanging clothes out to dry. He did not expect that she had washed all of his laundry. Ayala brushed it off as nothing important. Tsukasa reacted in panic when Ayala was about to hang his underwear. He quickly took it from her and said that he could handle his own laundry, but Ayala explained that doing the laundry was part of her responsibilities. Tsukasa pointed out that they usually used a laundry service, yet Ayala said she simply felt motivated to do it herself. He insisted that she did not need to wash something that personal, but Ayala calmly said she did not mind. Feeling flustered, Tsukasa gathered his things and hurried back into his room. At the office, Tsukasa told his co-workers that he wanted to ask Ayala out. Rain initially advised against it. Zack brought up how Ayala had once left Tsukasa alone at the amusement park, suggesting things might not go well. Constance felt Zack did not need to bring that up again. Takao suggested that Tsukasa should give Ayala some space, warning that rushing things might make her uncomfortable. On the other hand, Yasutaka fully supported Tsukasa's decision and even asked Constance to share some advice on how to ask a girl out. Constance believed that honesty was what mattered most and that if Tsukasa was straightforward about his feelings, Ayala would understand. Hearing that, Tsukasa smiled and felt more confident. When Tsukasa returned to his desk, he was surprised to see Ayala cleaning it. She explained that it looked a bit messy, so she decided to tidy it up. Tsukasa smiled, feeling a little guilty, but Ayala said it was simply part of being his partner. Tsukasa then asked about some papers that had been on his desk. Ayala explained that she had thrown them away, thinking they were no longer needed. It turned out Tsukasa still needed them. Shocked, Ayala immediately rushed to the trash to find them. Tsukasa said it was not a big deal, but Ayala kept searching until she found them. Even then, Tsukasa still could not bring himself to ask her out. Later that day, they carried out a field assignment together. Tsukasa mentioned that the job had gone better than expected. On their way back to the office, he said that he had something important to tell her. Ayala said she also had something important to say. Tsukasa became nervous and curious, wondering what it could be. It turned out Ayala had realized that they were lost and admitted that she had forgotten the way back. She became anxious and asked what they should do. Tsukasa laughed lightly and suggested using navigation. Ayala admitted that she had turned it off because she wanted to appear more capable. Tsukasa reassured her that using navigation would not make her any less impressive. That night, Tsukasa and his coworkers gathered in the restroom. wondering why he still had not asked Ayla out. Yasutaka questioned where Tsukasa's earlier enthusiasm had gone. Zack felt that Yasutaka might be pushing him too hard. However, Yasutaka believed that moments like this should not be missed and reminded Tsukasa that opportunities like this do not come often. He urged him to act. Tsukasa finally approached Ayla, while the others watched from a distance. With Yasutaka silently cheering him on, Tsukasa gathered his courage. He noticed Ayla look pale and asked if something was wrong. Ayla admitted that she felt bad because she thought she had caused trouble for him throughout the day. Tsukasa smiled and told her not to worry about it. He mentioned that her behavior that day felt a little different, like washing his clothes and cleaning his desk. Ayla explained that she just wanted to be useful to him. Tsukasa then told her that he wanted to spend time with her over the weekend, just the two of them. Ayla asked what kind of work they would be doing. Tsukasa clarified that it was not about work, but something personal. He sincerely asked her to go on a date with him. Ayla wondered if agreeing would make her useful to him. Tsukasa replied that if she agreed, it would make him very happy. Nearby, Yasutaka felt relieved, knowing that Tsukasa had finally managed to express his feelings and invite Ayla on a date. Tsukasa initially thought that Ayla would probably turn him down, but to his surprise, she actually agreed to go on a date with him. That made him really happy, since his invitation worked. Yasutaka was also thrilled to see Tsukasa successfully ask Ayla out. The next day, Ayla made tea for Tsukasa while he was working. Out of nowhere, Kazuki pulled Tsukasa aside and asked if it was true that he and Ayla were going on a date. Tsukasa admitted it. Kazuki commented that it felt a bit excessive. Even though she trusted Tsukasa to take care of Ayla, she believed he should not be so relaxed about it. Tsukasa understood what she meant. He realized she had a point. He was still a beginner and needed to put in more effort. Ayla continued her training, while Tsukasa stayed busy finishing his work, even pulling an all-nighter. Yasutaka even invited him out for drinks at one point. That same night, Ayla kept practicing diving under the supervision of Eru and Mikijiro. The following day, Tsukasa kept pushing himself at work. Michiru noticed how busy he was. When lunchtime came, Michiru ate her homemade lunch while Tsukasa only had an energy drink. Michiru scolded him for not taking care of his eating habits. Tsukasa asked her not to worry about him and quickly went back to work. Michiru found it strange how suddenly motivated Tsukasa had become. Zack suggested that if she was worried, she could just make lunch for him, especially since she was good at cooking. He also mentioned that Tsukasa was probably so fired up because of the upcoming date and joked that Tsukasa might stop paying attention to Michiru altogether. That caught Michiru off guard, and she immediately asked Zack to explain what date he was talking about and who Tsukasa was going with. Zack casually revealed that Tsukasa would be going out with Ayla. Michiru had already suspected it, which explained Tsukasa's sudden burst of energy. With an annoyed expression, she said she did not care about it at all, though Zack kept teasing her anyway. That night, Michiru and Eru approached Ayla and asked where she and Tsukasa planned to go on their date. Ayla said the destination was entirely up to her. Michiru criticized Tsukasa for being irresponsible. Eru then asked Ayla what kind of place she wanted to visit, but Ayla did not have any ideas. Michiru had expected that. Eru suggested going to an aquarium or watching a movie at the theater. Zack commented that Eru's suggestions were safe choices. Eru seemed slightly confused by his remark but explained that since it was their first date, there was nothing wrong with keeping things simple. Eru then asked for Michiru's opinion. Michiru said that if it were up to her, a beach would be a nice place for a date. Someone pointed out that the beach might be closed at that time, but Michiru responded that it would actually be better if it was quiet, since Tsukasa and Ayla could spend time alone together. Eru agreed and imagined walking along the beach with a big dog, laughing and playing by the shoreline. Michiru also imagined watching the sunset together, sharing quiet, meaningful moments and holding hands. Zack teased that Michiru was surprisingly romantic. Eru told Ayla to remember that Michiru had a romantic side. Embarrassed, Michiru lightly hit Eru for putting ideas into Ayla's head. Michiru then said that Ayla did not need to follow their suggestions and asked if there was anywhere she personally wanted to go. Ayla started thinking about an amusement park, a place she had once visited with Kazuki. Michiru then asked what Ayla planned to wear. Ayla said she intended to wear her work uniform. Michiru immediately objected and asked if she had any personal clothes. Ayla showed the outfit Tsukasa had bought for her after she accidentally tore it in the store. Eru thought the tear could be covered up with some decorations, but Michiru was not convinced, saying it might look odd. In the end, Michiru offered to fix it herself because she wanted Ayla to look her best for her first date. Later, while in the dorm room with Tsukasa, Ayla told him that their date destination would be the amusement park. Tsukasa asked if she was sure about that choice. Ayla admitted she did not know where else to go, and also explained that she once left Tsukasa there. something that had made her feel guilty ever since. Because of that, she wanted to go there again with him. Tsukasa agreed with her choice. That night, Tsukasa opened Ayala's diary and saw a note saying that Kazuki had once invited Ayala to the amusement park again, shortly before Kazuki eventually decided to stop being Ayala's partner. The next day, Tsukasa woke up from his sleep feeling both hot and cold at the same time. He was momentarily stunned when he saw Ayala wearing a different outfit than usual, and he thought it suited her really well. That day, they went to an amusement park together. Ayala immediately walked toward a bench where she used to sit with Kazuki in the past. She enjoyed watching people happily riding the attractions. Tsukasa wondered if that bench was her favorite spot, remembering from her diary that Kazuki often took her to the amusement park when they were still partners. Ayala explained that she used to sit there until sunset, observing the different smiles on everyone's faces. She felt that it helped her release her worries and brought her a sense of warmth from those smiles. When Tsukasa asked whether Kazuki always stayed with her, Ayala shared that he would usually fall asleep beside her. Tsukasa then asked when the last time she visited the park was. Ayala said it had been 3 years ago, when Kazuki told her he no longer wanted to be her partner because she caused him too much trouble. According to Ayala, that visit was overwhelming, as both happy and sad feelings filled her mind all at once. Tsukasa asked what she liked most about the amusement park, whether it was the roller coaster or the Ferris wheel. Surprisingly, Ayala admitted that she had never ridden either of them. Tsukasa then invited her to try them together, saying there were so many fun experiences waiting for them there. They went on several rides, from swinging attractions to spinning ones, and even a haunted house. After that, they took pictures and shared some creeps. Tsukasa tried to buy her another keychain, but Ayala showed him the one he had given her before. Tsukasa was unsure whether what he was doing was right or perhaps a bit selfish, but deep down, he just wanted Ayala to feel happy in every moment she had. Later, they rode the Ferris wheel. Ayala was amazed as she looked down and saw the spot where she used to sit, now appearing so small from above. Tsukasa mentioned that it was the place where they first met. Ayala never expected that she would get to ride the Ferris wheel with him. Tsukasa felt relieved and grateful, believing that Ayala was truly enjoying herself. Suddenly, Ayala was startled when Tsukasa collapsed into her arms. She felt flustered as his body went limp and he lost consciousness. Not knowing what to do, she was overwhelmed with concern. That night, Tsukasa woke up and found himself lying in bed with Ayala by his side. When he asked what had happened, Ayala explained that they were on the Ferris wheel when he suddenly fainted. Tsukasa could not remember any of it and apologized for causing trouble. Ayala did not want him to think that way and believed he was simply exhausted. She suggested that they should go to the hospital the next day, then quickly went to get him some water. At the same time, Michiru stood outside Tsukasa's room, bringing a bowl of porridge. She had practiced what she wanted to say before coming, preparing herself to knock on the door. However, she hesitated, thinking that Tsukasa already had Ayala by his side and decided not to go in. Tsukasa later shared that he often fainted during important moments. He also explained that he had not gone to college because his appendicitis flared up during the entrance exam. Even so, he felt grateful, since that situation led him to join the terminal service and meet Ayala. To him, failure was not always a bad thing. Ayala wanted Tsukasa to keep smiling. Tsukasa apologized again for making her worry, while Ayala also apologized for hiding the truth about her remaining time. Tsukasa admitted that he wanted to stay with her until her very last moment. Ayala nodded when he asked if she was okay with that. He then expressed his wish to go out with her again, and as they held hands, Tsukasa eventually fell asleep. The next morning, Tsukasa woke up feeling much better after resting all night, thinking he no longer needed to visit the hospital. However, to his surprise, Ayala was the one who had become exhausted, her battery running low after staying awake the entire night. Tsukasa panicked and desperately called out for her to hold on.